Welcome back to the BDGE Dynasty Fantasy Football channel. And as always, I am joined with my devastatingly cute co-hosts, Adam and Andrew. Andrew not to be here for much longer if he keeps this charade up. Today, we are doing some buy, sell, hold. This has quickly become some of your guys' favorite content, so we like to yap about it. We're going to continue doing it. If you guys have suggestions for content, we're also open to hearing any suggestions. We'll probably turn them down, but hey, every once in a while, they come with some good hashtags like surviving BDGE.
Surviving BDGE.
Surviving BDGE. We here. We're surviving another 2 weeks, all right? And also, just another quick housekeeping announcement. We are going to be shifting over heavily into redraft-focused content in a few weeks. We will still be putting out at least 3 Dynasty videos per week, but the redraft channel, if you're not subscribed over there, will ramp up quickly to 4 or 5, maybe a live stream or 2 jumped in as well. So make sure you're subscribed all around, but we will be everywhere in the BDGE ecosphere.
Kind of like the Heatles, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7.
And the way that people are drafting Sam Laporta, they would think he won 7 championships. They would think he was LeBron fucking James, 26th overall in startups. The tight end won. The tight end won. Can you blame people? He is coming off of massive season as a rookie, a good offense, but we'll hear what y'all had to say. What we tinking? 26th overall, so we're talking about the 302 in Dynasty startups and the tight end 1 overall.
Flip them.
Sell. Looks like we got our answer in this economy.
Some of the analysis on this is going to be the player, but ultimately just the tight end position as a whole. Once you get to tight end 1, especially in that range, like you're talking 2nd, 3rd round in startups, it's just it's time to sell. Yeah. It's time to be out.
Yeah, I think the biggest glaring hole here in this value is like the tight end 2, 3, 4 being 2 to 3 rounds later than him, which is crazy because I'm like, I don't care that Mark Andrews is 5 years older than him. If I'm getting him in the 6th round of a startup, like I'm going to take Andrews there and grab a Malik Neighbors at the 3-2 or something like that. Trey McBride, like I have him up there in Dynasty. So I'm like, you're getting him at a 2-round discount. I get it. Laporta had that rookie year, but like this is where I think around where like Kyle Pitts was going when he was in startup drafts, right? When he was coming out.
Pitt after his rookie season?
Yeah.
So after his rookie season, I remember we did our first podcast together that offseason.
No. Oh, yeah, sorry.
And he was a 1st-round startup pick.
Okay.
111 type beat.
And that obviously didn't work out, but that makes sense to me because at that point, it was literally just like Pitts is then the second coming, and then you have like 30-year-old Travis Kelce, and there wasn't really anyone else like kind of blowing up, in real time. So it was like the 2, one was 22 years old, 21 years old. Now it's like Laporta had a great year, but there's also like a bunch of 23 to 28-year-olds that are probably going to give you the same production.
Correct.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, just going back into that spot, what you're talking about is the gap that you have between Laporta and the 2, 3, 4 range, which is going to be the Bowers, Kincaid. Who's the other guy? McBride. You just said it. Yeah. But when you look at the value difference, like on keep, trade, cut, like if you wanted to tier down, which is why I put the down arrow, because I'm tearing down Laporta to a different tight end in that tier. Because what you can throw in is a 2nd-round pick, a Christian Watson, a DeAndre Swift. Like, these are the types of assets that, quote-unquote, make the trade even on keep, trade, cut. And if that's the bonus piece that you're getting in a tear down, I'm doing that every time because do we think that McBride and Kincaid specifically, I don't know how we feel about Bowers year 1, but do we think that those 2 guys have a shot of outscoring Laporta this year?
Yeah, easily.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah, I teared down and fade the fetal from Laporta to Mark Andrews. And
I remember that with Tony, right?
Yeah, with Tony, yeah. And I guess, too, the other thing is with Laporta, you're paying for the youth. And at that position, like, do I need to have a young tight end? Like, that's the other thing. Like, there's a lot, obviously, in a lot of positions, I don't think you need to have a quote-unquote young player. If Mark Andrews gave you 3 more seasons as a top 5, 6 tight end, would that be surprising?
No.
So why do we need to have the Laporta version when you're going to get 8 more seasons? Like, it doesn't seem logical.
You get the perceived 10-year window with Laporta as like the next Travis Kelce, and that's what people are excited about.
The other thing too is like going into that season with Pitts, what the tight end was giving you, like the high end ones, as far as the difference from the field at tight end, was a lot higher and more impactful. It feels like this last year, even though Sam Laporta was technically the tight end 1, he wasn't single-handedly winning people like weeks.
Nah, it was, and even like if you go points per game, like full PPR, like Kelsey does jump him in certain stats, and I wonder because maybe it's less volatile at the tight end position because they get a lot of red zone targets, but but touchdowns in general are a volatile stat.
Yep.
So like you ask yourself, what if Kyle Pitts had 10 touchdowns his rookie year? Like he would have been, I feel like the consensus 101 in dynasty startups.
The main thing was he got almost none.
He had like 2 or 3.
I think
right?
it was like something very slow.
Right. So I'm thinking like, okay, if Laporta scored 4 touchdowns or 5 touchdowns last year, we're probably drafting him around where like Kincaid went. So like I don't want to overstate or where Kincaid is going. I don't want to overstate like the 10 touchdowns, awesome, but like next year if he has 6 or 7, not going to be a huge surprise, and he's not going to return, the 212 fucking value in dynasty startups.
That's a great point because Laporta had a very good season. I do think there's a chance that he maybe gets a little bit more targets, has more yardage, but 10 touchdowns. The second tight ends, do you guys know what their reception totals were last year? He led the field at 10. So then the next highest tight end touchdown number last year, if you had to
7.
I'm trying to think. I feel like Kelsey didn't get in a bunch.
I think Andrews was like one of the top.
Well, Andrews was hurt, wasn't he?
Yeah, but I think he still was one of the top.
I would almost say like Jake Ferguson probably did something like, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7.
6 it was.
6.
So like he had there was actually a handful of
like
them.
9 people tied at 6.
Cole Kmet, Mark Andrews, George Kittle, David Njoku, Hunter Henry all had 6 touchdowns last year. So I guess the point is touchdown regression. Like even if you think Sam Laporta is going to be better this year, touchdown regression could still come.
Yeah. All right. So we're all pretty much selling Laporta.
Yeah.
I think like the down tier just might be the most obvious move in dynasty fantasy right now is down tiering Laporta, in my opinion.
I don't know how feasible it is. We've talked about this in previous episodes though, about like being able to make those moves at tight end. Because I've tried down tiering Laporta and nobody's really biting. So like I don't mind holding him if you can't down tier.
All we can do is work, no matter what data we pull, whether it's from South Harmon, whether it's from Sleeper, Keep Trade Cut, we're going to be told it's unrealistic. We're just working with the fucking data that we got in front of us. So this is what the market is telling us. If we're able to actually
get it,
work based off that data, cool.
Let me ask you guys this actually for people that
motherfuckers
are maybe struggling to get that down tier. I think one of the issues obviously is the list of how many people you'd be willing to down tier to. So essentially, if you have Sam Laporta and you're in the market looking to do this, what tight ends would you be willing to go to or feel comfortable actually going down to in the down tier? Obviously, the plus coming back is going to change versus who you're going to.
Yeah, it would be those first 3: McBride, Kincaid,
Bowers, Pitts, Andrews.
I would probably go Andrews. Pitts, I think for me,
iffy.
Pitts is probably the last one, but that I think where it stops.
Okay.
That next tier is like Hawkinson, Kelsey, Kittle. You're not going into that tier.
Unlikely.
Okay. Yeah, I agree, but I would throw Pitts in my tier, I guess.
It's probably right, but like it's just one of those things where you just scarred enough times that.
Yeah,
and you're an Atlanta fan, so it's like it's a little bit more close to
y'all
home.
Notice the Falcons helmet's gone? I mean, it's happening.
The closer we get to football, the real football,
upon us.
The more I stay away.
I'll say that makes sense, your guys' answers, and I think that's probably too down tier to those guys in particular is harder because if you think about it, if you have those tight ends on the flip side, you really want to pay whatever the cost is to go up to Laporta. So I think if you really want to sell, if you're willing to go down to guys like Njoku, Ingram, Kittle, it's obviously not for the faint of heart, but that's probably where you could actually reap a very decent return back. It feels a lot more dicey.
Yeah.
Just going to Mark Andrews, it says James Cook, Isaiah Pacheco, Lad McConkey. These are the type of assets that would.
Right. So you're talking about a back end like first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Basically. And it's like, are people really doing that? Are people really giving up Mark Andrews plus Pacheco or James Cook or whatever for Laporta? Maybe some people are. I don't really know.
I mean,
it ain't gonna be me.
I guess it would depend. Like some people have more polarizing opinions about running backs in Dynasty, I think.
I would agree.
So I would say maybe like someone you love like James Cook. So like maybe that makes that move for you. If someone like you're like I'm not a fan of James Cook, so that's not really a big piece of it for me. Maybe that does make sense.
Yeah. I think realistically like the first type value, I feel like it's someone would realistically go down for that for a second or 2 seconds or a player that they specifically weren't high on. But to your point, like a really valuable piece or at first probably not happening.
Right. All right.
Let's get it.
Give me the board.
All right. This player is the 175th player on Keep Trade Cut in Superflex, tight end premium. Wide receiver 67, currently down 2 spots of late. The wide receiver is Nuke Hopkins. Wide receiver 59, going directly after Cortland Sutton, going just ahead of Quentin Johnson, Khalil Shakir, Malachi Corley. So
Where overall?
147.8.
I also got to buy there too.
Yeah.
I also feel like I don't buy that price at all. I feel like that's like a fake price.
Yeah, I mean, I just think when you have the names there, it feels like a lot of people who haven't done anything yet, and DeAndre Hopkins has, and you get this offense upgrade that we think that they're going to get under Brian Callahan, and Hopkins has as good of a shot as competing for the number 1 wide receiver role as Calvin Ridley does, in my opinion. So for a contender, cheap buy, you can get good production out of him. Obviously, if you're a rebuilder, you're not buying DeAndre Hopkins, but I think in general, he's a buy at that cost.
Who are the names again?
It's Corley, Jacoby Myers, Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, I'm taking D-Hop over all those guys without a doubt.
So he's going ahead of Quentin Johnson, Myers, Shakir, Corley. He's going just after Sutton, Roman Wilson, Dobbs, Jahan Dotson, Jerry Jeudy.
Okay, I'm probably taking D-Hop over all those guys still too.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, I think, and the thing is, if you look at Stout Harmon's ADP, he's going in the 13th round. It's just, I don't know I think this is one of those where if you had Nuke on your team, I don't think you're going to be trading him for the guys going ahead.
Yeah.
But I think if you're in a new league or startup, I don't doubt at all people are taking those guys ahead because
that makes sense.
They just don't view Nuke as everybody thinks he's going to fall off or that he already has. Last year, you guys know he was wide receiver 22 in PPR leagues.
Yep.
He went up for over 1,000.
I mean, I know it
He
was
had 4
probably
touchdowns in one game.
Granted, it was obviously the Will Levis game was ridiculous,
Yeah.
but
I mean,
You know that was
it was always going to happen. It was against the
50%
Falcons.
of Will Levis's touchdown production on the year was that game.
He only had 6 on the year.
I think so.
How many games did he play?
7.
I was going to say, 8 or 7 was I
Not
guess.
great.
But I guess my point is, that was in a low passing volume offense where he had Tannehill and half a year with Tannehill, half a year with Levis. All the factors are switching this year in his favor. The only thing that's not is going to be his age and is he going to stay healthy. If he's out there on the field, there's no way he's not a value. I feel like obviously he's very old. He's 32 now, so people are acting like he's just done.
No, I agree with that 100%. I would take him over all the guys you named. What rookie pick? Let's say you're not rebuilding, right? And D-Hop probably makes sense for your team in one way or another. Where's the line for a rookie pick swap? Assuming your rookie draft hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Ideally,
because I was going to say, because Roman Wilson was on there, and I feel like where did Roman Wilson go in rookie draft?
Roman Wilson goes
Like a
anywhere from
late
that
second.
206 to 212 range.
Right. There are some people, and I guess if I'm thinking about a D-Hop trade, 206 feels a little rich.
Yeah.
But I do think that later second, 209 to 212, if we're sending feeler offers out and that counter comes back in my inbox, I'm probably accepting that if I am
Taking
looking to
D-Hop,
get
giving
D-Hop.
away the 210.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's probably about the range because you get into that tier where it's I'm not really feeling great about any of those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest. If it was me, if I'm in the position where I am contending, obviously there's probably some upside for some of the guys you're drafting in the second round this year's deep. But you tell me it's 206, I'm sending it, man.
Really?
Yeah. I think people, and I'm guilty of this too. We think that player is going to be impactful for us for a long time, and that may be the case. But the reality is, you also on a contending team, he may not be impactful for you now. If he doesn't start out of the gates hot, he may not give you a sell window. You may end up just losing that asset in general anyway. Isn't that what the whole fear of Nuke is?
Yeah, I don't like giving up the picks that early, only because. You talk about this often about how having the picks is just this liquid value that you have at all times.
For sure.
And I don't really like moving picks until I know what's available to me on the clock, right? In a few of my drafts, I had the 206, 207 in multiple drafts, and one of them was Adonai Mitchell, who I would take AD over D-Hop in Dynasty. Another one, I got Jonathan Brooks down at the 207, and I'm taking Jay Brooks over D-Hop, obviously. So, in a vacuum, someone might like Roman Wilson at 206, but that's probably one of your 12 league mates. And
I should have clarified for context. That would be a pick, a trade I'd be making on the clock or closer to where I'm saying, all right, the guys that I really like at that 206 are gone. Because I totally agree. I've seen it at the 2. You got Brooks, I think, at 207.
Right. Oh, yeah, you're in that league with me.
Yeah. So, 100%. There could be guys that fall in this draft, but if we're saying where it's 204 and you're all right, there's a realistic chance I'm not going to be getting the guy I want here, I'd be willing to go up to 206. But that's I feel like the 206 though. I guess my point is the 206 probably gets it done for a lot of people in this current market.
Yeah, it's tough in this draft class though because the 206 you're either kind of guaranteed one of those dudes that you like, AD Mitchell, or a first round wide receiver that you didn't like, Pearsall, Xavier Leggett or something like that. That's why I'm kind of with you where it needs to be a little bit deeper into the second round for me, 209 to 212.
I'd even say probably still consider like Trey Benson over Hopkins, and you can probably find him at 206. And even
let's go down.
He's right in that area.
Let's go down this ADP real quick.
I might go Blake Corum,
So
but I've always liked Blake Corum a little bit more than you guys here. I know.
Right now, this is how they have the receivers ranked on Keep Trade Cuts. 13 Keon Coleman, 14 Benson, 15 Penix, 16 Nix, 17 Pearsall. So 18 it starts with
Bo Nix is 15.
Yeah, people hate Bo Nix.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, can you start at 9 and work your way up?
So 9 is Jonathan Brooks, 10 is Brian Thomas, 11 Xavier Worthy, 12 Ladd McConkey, 13 Keon Coleman, 14 Benson, 15 Penix, 16 Nix, 17 Pearsall. So then 18 we're talking basically Leggett, Mitchell, Polk range.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd go those guys over Hop right now.
I think while I certainly understand it, I wouldn't be surprised to see the values move by, let's say, October, where Keep Trade Cut has, if Nuke is playing well out of the gates, ahead of those guys. Like that's the shit can switch, I think, a lot from this time in June where nothing's happening to where we're playing games and like if Nuke has two top 24 weeks, all of a sudden might be a flip flop there.
I agree, and I think my strategy actually changes a little bit too, depending, because you said if you're not rebuilding, but that kind of puts you in. I feel like there's two different directions. You can be the teams that are like hoping to push for the playoffs, and you could be the teams that are hoping to win a championship. I feel like that's two different things. On the teams that I'm hoping to win a championship, I'm more likely to send the 206 for Hopkins. The teams where I'm hoping to make the playoffs, probably grabbing the Adonai Mitchell.
That's fair. And I would say if you're not, you don't try to buy a Nuke and flip him if you're a non-contender. That's risky business.
Yeah. But overall, I think, based on where he's going in this stuff and like those players that we listed one for one, D-Hop's probably a better value than all of those guys if you're even remotely close to competing.
All right, Mr. Andrew.
All right. For my first buy, we're going to keep it in this theme here. I guess not my first buy. My first buy, sell, hold. My first buy, sell, hold. We're going to keep it in the theme of the older guys. We're not talking about Adam here. We're talking about Keenan Allen.
I was going to say, careful.
Who?
Keenan Allen.
Keenan, okay.
Now a Chicago Bear. Got to do the little claw now, too, with Caleb Williams. But he is currently being drafted in Sleeper with an ADP of 112. Tell you the guys that are in the range of Keenan Allen right now, and it's I don't want to show my card too much. I'm scrolling down pretty far. Hold on. Guys in his range right now on Sleeper: Calvin Ridley, Chris Godwin, Hollywood Brown, Adonai Mitchell, Christian Watson, Deontay Johnson, Jameson Williams. These are all the guys in that tier.
Yeah, it would be a sell for me on the Sleeper ADP if I can get off of Allen for guys like Calvin Ridley. I think even AD Mitchell, stuff like that, I think it would make sense.
Godwin.
Yeah, Godwin, exactly. I think that it's funny you put him right after DeAndre Hopkins to me, because to me, when I look at it, it's like, am I kind of looking at the same picture here realistically? Like back end of their career, both guys that could give you production, but also could fall off a cliff. Why Keenan Allen? I guess for me, why I say sell is why so much. Why am I so much more bullish on him, given there's 3 wide receivers in that offense we like versus 2, and there's a chance that DeAndre Hopkins is the number 1 for the whole year.
It's last year's finish. That's what everybody remembers. Is last we saw him on the field, he was still dominating.
And what was you know what's the interesting stat about Keenan Allen? Do you know who led the league in targets per game by a pretty decent clip?
Targets per game?
Yeah.
Keenan Allen.
Was it not Keenan?
Yeah.
It was.
So like bake in the fact that last year when we saw him, a lot of his value, and rightfully so, was he was just getting alpha targets. Mm-hmm. Do we think he's going to like lead the league in targets with Rome and DJ Moore there? I don't know.
No. What? Okay. Looking at, I think Keenan, I'm almost looking at Keenan similar to Diggs, where would you be surprised if he gave you one more, like, squeeze everything you got left out of him year? No. But is he the same player he was 3 years ago where, like, he could threaten you deep? Like, not really anymore. Probably better suited to play in the slot or just, like, run short to intermediate routes and get open pretty quickly. I think that's what they, both of those guys kind of do.
Right.
Question I keep asking myself is, like, yeah, Keenan was so good last year. What percentage chances do you give Keenan to score more fantasy points than DJ Moore this year? Just straight up.
Like on a percentile?
Yeah.
20% chance that he outscores DJ Moore.
That's kind of where my head was at as well. I might go a little bit higher, but
I was going to say 25.
Yeah, like, will he score more than DJ Moore? No. Will he score more than Rome? Probably, but Rome was a number 9 overall pick in the draft.
I'd put that 50-50 almost. Like, I almost think that Rome has a chance to just outscore him this year. And maybe that's just hope in the rookie. But
sure. I think that even the fact that like it's in your mind is like kind of worrisome for Keenan Allen altogether.
I also think we could be looking at a situation where there's some people that say, let's say you have Keenan Allen in a higher than 50-50 right now. Let's say the first 6-8 weeks, people, I told you so. We look at the last part of the year, Rome could be ready to make a big leap going into year 2, and we see him kind of take over.
And the problem too with like even what you just said, why I'm holding Keenan just because I kind of want to see how the situation shakes out. And, like, maybe he plays really well this year with Caleb. Cool.
Sure.
He's a vet. Maybe he becomes, like, his safety blanket, gives you one nice PPR season. I do think, though, if you're going to sell him, like, you have, like, best case scenario is he does, like, ball out the first half of the year. But even that, like, I don't think Keenan becomes a trade target for anybody. You know, like, no one's trading for a 31-year-old receiver, no matter how good his, like, no one was trading for Adam Thielen in Dynasty last year after 7 weeks of the season. No one's trading for Keenan Allen 8 weeks. Can't be like, I'm just going to buy him and flip him. Like, maybe in redraft you could pull that shit, but that's not going to work in Dynasty.
So let me ask you guys, because I recently was working on a 2-part video series on my channel, which was like undervalued assets for contending teams to be buying. And I was going to actually do the wide receiver one. Because I got sick the other day, I'm like, let's just push the wide receiver one, put it on the BDGE channel.
This is what he gives us his sick scraps.
No, I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it, but I had no voice, and I still don't have a voice, really. But Keenan Allen's on this list. Do you guys agree that Keenan Allen's, because of the sentiment that you guys just had right there about, like, we don't really like him, do you think for those teams that are trying to go win that championship, being valued at 52 on KTC, do you feel like that's actually a target for contending rosters to buy?
I'm hesitant still. I think that's a little bit of a steep price for the coin flip of it happening.
Because what I do in the video is I compare where these guys are being valued on KTC compared to like where they're being drafted in underdog drafts going into this year based on this year's production. Just because we're trying to chase that championship this year, right?
Keenan's like what, 5th round, 6th round?
He's wide receiver 31 on underdog, wide receiver 52 on KTC. It's a 21 spot difference. It's one of the largest in the whole wide receiver
that makes sense
pool.
for sure.
And a lot of that is probably because people still think that he can give you, like you said, that one more year of all of that. And with that KTC price, Romeo Doubs, Roman Wilson, Troy Franklin, Jahan Dotson, like if I'm running for a championship, I am sending my
That's why I said
Romeo Doubs for Keenan and just saying, screw it.
Yeah. That's why I said the difference in sleepers ADP right now versus KTC for me matters quite a bit. Because the reason I say sell, for the record, if I was able to get guys in this range of like Adonai Mitchell, I'm not even the biggest JMO guy, but JMO, Polk, even Troy Franklin. I think the thing with those type of guys is this. I know if I'm a contending team and I have them, you shouldn't be realistically expecting them to give you the production output that Keenan Allen has. But I think the big thing is if those guys hit a little window where they have 2 really good weeks, their type of value, those young assets, it surges. And now I can probably trade away those players for guys I should not be able to in that moment. I think that's the thing you got to be doing is knowing that I'm looking for a sell window for these guys to get into a better production tier than Keenan Allen. It's safer.
You won't get that with Keenan.
Yeah. Right,
no matter how good his first 2 weeks are, like you're not going from like, oh, I can move the 2.8 to him to like now I want a first for him, and it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, you essentially cap your ceiling. It's 100% correct.
I'm still so bullish on Troy Franklin. I know you just mentioned his name. I can't stop drafting him in underdog right now. I just
really? And this is why BDGE
Troy every time.
And this is why BDGE is down bad.
I love Troy Franklin at this cost, man. I loved him before, but at this cost now, it's like twice as good. Anyways, do we want to go on to the next one?
Yeah, let's move on to receiver right in the same vein. That's going at pick 108, wide receiver 43, and that is Mr. Christopher Godwin, the Tampa Bay Buccaneer. So he is going 2 wide receivers ahead of Keenan Allen, 4 picks overall in sleeper startup. He is going very far ahead of DeAndre Hopkins, wherever that man's is.
59 on sleepers.
Yeah, 147. So we're talking about almost a 40 pick difference there. Yeah, I mean, his ADP is 108. The guys going right ahead of him are Xavier Leggett, Ricky Pearsall, Christian Kirk, Amari Cooper. Guys right behind him are Ridley, Keenan, Hollywood Brown.
I'm holding.
Yeah, I got by. I think he's teetering on that like hold by. I'm definitely not selling him.
Yeah.
I think that with Godwin, the same sentiment that I just talked about with Keenan Allen still applies, where like Godwin isn't going to have a massive surge in value. He's hit that point in his career, but you're banking on, I think, uptick in production with him back in the slot. Even though the Baker chemistry wasn't there, if you're telling me he didn't play a lot in the slot and he's actually going to, that would make maybe a little more sense why the chemistry wasn't that high.
Can we have that discussion a little bit? Because you said you watched my video, and like I'm not like super sold that he's not going to play more in the slot, but does that actually make sense? Because they draft Jalen McMillan, who was a
slot guy,
a pure slot guy at Washington. So if they go into 2 receiver sets, obviously, then no one's in the slot. Godwin and Evans are both outside. If they go into 3 wide receiver sets, who is the one that goes outside and making Godwin move inside?
Trey Palmer.
Palmer would be. I think,
I'm asking what you guys think.
I think you're probably misusing McMillan a little bit there.
Yeah.
But this was the thing I was looking at. I was trying to dig into this data when I was trying to do a video about Chris Godwin. It's hard to get all of this data. Fantasy Points has some of it. But they ran 2 receiver sets last year at a pretty high clip relative to what you've seen in the past for them. And I also think part of that was trying to protect Baker. And I think there's a chance that this year now you're looking at more just legitimate 3 wide receiver sets. And I think at the point,
I would like that. See them like open it up a little bit more. It'd be fun.
And I think that the wide receiver on the outside, I don't think they're going to feel great about it realistically. But I think the idea is that they don't. It's kind of like what do you want to call it?
A lie.
Yeah, it's a. What's the word I'm looking for there? Decoy. Like who gives a fuck out there?
Yeah. How do you guys feel about? I know there's been, at least I've seen a little bit of chatter about it, where we have kind of seen guys who, under Dave Canales, they take that step forward, but then if Dave Canales leaves, they kind of regress back to the mean a little bit. Mm-hmm. How do you guys feel about Baker potentially regressing back to the mean, and then what does that do for Godwin or something like that? I'm worried about Baker a little bit. I'm actually trying to sell Baker right now where the cost is.
I have him in fetal, and I've been trying to move him. I've been trying to like tier up from Baker a little bit. I'm not necessarily like worried about him like back to the mean, because I don't think like last year was.
He was a top 12 guy last year, wasn't he?
So
yeah, he played well.
He's not going to do that again.
I dug into this actually quite a bit. So with Baker, initially I was kind of going into it thinking he might be a buy. While he was on the surface like a back-end quarterback 1, his points per game, and you think about all the attrition to the position, he was quarterback 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay? he had some bad games, some stinkers.
And then to your point with that, Canales and the revitalization of Baker, if you look at his contract, the bag's kind of a fake bag as far as when they can get out of it, too. They can get out of it really quick.
Baker's?
Yeah. So I think he's risky. I'm not actually that worried about, like, Chris Godwin outside of last year and Mike Evans for the most part. They've been able to produce with quarterback play up and down. So I think I'm more worried about it for Baker, less for Godwin. I think at this point, like, I don't think Godwin is going to produce worse than he did last year. I think last year is probably towards the floor of what we expect production-wise.
One more year post-injury where he's a little bit healthier. Like, I think there's some things, but there's enough questions. That's why I have him as this hold still here, because I want to see what he does a little bit more.
Sure.
Me too.
Before I can make an adjustment. I actually just made a trade too, talking about the Baker, where I named the trade the Canales theory, because I moved on from Baker to Bryce Young, and I'm just going to follow Dave Canales and see if he gets
just a flip, 1-for-1.
It was Baker plus like Devontae Walker and like a 3rd-round pick for Bryce. Yeah, a couple fluff pieces, and then.
So let me ask you, looking at sleeper right now.
Yeah.
Godwin again, 108. The guys ahead of him, I'll just go the 5 directly ahead of him. Are you taking Godwin over any of these guys? Xavier Leggett?
Depending on team, actually no.
I think if I'm a team that's a strong contender and I want to be risk averse, I would do it.
Okay.
I don't love Leggett, but I think the upside's still too high for me to get rid of
that's
him
the conversation I think of. Leggett's upside and what you could probably trade at some point in the season with pop weeks is really high. But if he doesn't produce, you could be looking at, like, look what happened to Mingo. Some of these guys that don't produce, they dip really quick.
But going into year 2, people were still like, well, Jonathan Mingo can break out.
Ricky Pearsall.
I like Ricky P more
Chris Godwin.
than Godwin. But that is one where if I'm a contending team, I'm just taking Chris Godwin.
I think the Godwin thing there for me, I would be more willing to just be risk averse there, because the Ricky Pearsall sell window, if they don't move on from these guys, may not come.
Yeah.
They're paying everybody but Ayuk right now, so.
Yeah, Christian Kirk.
I think I'm kind of looking at the same picture there.
Okay. I like Kirk a lot more.
I like Kirk more.
Really?
Yeah, because once we get those are the 3 guys directly ahead of him, like the 3 picks in front of him. Then it gets like Amari Cooper, and like you're not taking Godwin over Amari Cooper.
I mean, just for the record, like last year, last year points per game, Christian Kirk, Chris Godwin was the same picture.
Really?
Yeah. 10.2.
Amari Cooper and
no, Christian Kirk and did I say Amari?
I
heard.
Maybe it's just because he just said
Kirk and Godwin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you sure? I feel like
yeah.
How much time
I want to say that probably.
I'm looking at a half PPR league for the record, but let me go to Fetal for a second.
He was PPR guy. I also think that probably includes like those back end games where he got hurt in and played like. Yeah, he has a game where he played 1% of snaps.
It includes the game that he did catch that ball probably for sure.
I hate that technically for the data that counts.
I take those,
but
out.
I hate that.
Yep.
I always take it out. take it out. I'll preface it and be like,
I'm saying like if you
for
like
the record,
just pulled
it was
up
actually
sleeper,
you go full PPR, it was 12.4 versus 12.5. To your point, you got to take that one out. So let's even say, just for people sort of understanding of last year and that being down, I think in production, Chris Godwin and Garrett Wilson, same picture. Like I just feel like it's just
feel like Chris Godwin,
unsexy. It's an unsexy flex play that I like.
It's unsexy, but there's a lot of context. I think looking like we have to talk about the future. Where it's like Godwin, it felt like a lot of things went right for him, where the offense outperformed. Garrett Wilson, it's like same production, but now he gets Aaron Rodgers. Christian Kirk, same production, but now you have 140 targets of Calvin Ridley not there. Evan Ingram just had the second highest reception total of all time for tight ends. Probably not going to happen again. You know, I think they're like two ships passing in the night, though they have the same production.
I agree. And really the thing is, it was 2 years ago where Chris Godwin was like a top 15 dynasty asset because he had that like really high season. Like we missed the sell window there, and now it's like you're holding or buying at this cost at this point. So
yeah. I feel like he's just a guy that's going to give me unsexy production that is realistically like guys that going ahead of him, like Terry McLaurin and him. I'm probably looking at the same picture. Guys like Christian Kirk, I think they're basically the same value. So I'm not going to say over Kirk, but I think it's similar. So
Godwin kind of just feels like one of those dudes you got to ride into the sunset at this point. Let him give you 12 points this year, then 11 next year, then 9 the year after, and be like, all right, it's over.
That's why I have him at a buy, but I could also see a hold. I feel like I have actually gotten Chris Godwin cheap a couple times. So if I find a manager that's willing to let me buy, I'm in. But outside of that,
what's the cheap purchase price for you?
It's gonna be it's in Fetal, so the trade's convoluted as far as the.
It's like one of those ones where you throw them in on a different type of deal.
It's a much bigger deal. I can pull it up for you.
Yeah, I like doing that, honestly, where you like – do you guys ever do that where you try and go for a specific asset, but you throw a couple other pieces in there?
When you kind of remove the fluff, I basically got 2 late firsts and there was 2 early seconds going to him. So let's just cross those out for the sake of it. But that basically I got to get 2 firsts and get off of 2 seconds and then swapped Reed and Godwin.
Okay.
So it's...
You know what he just said?
Nope.
There's too many numbers.
I said, okay.
I'm out the game.
If we talk about 2 seconds, let me
read it. All right. That's fair. You're not looking at the trade. I get Chris Godwin, the 111 and the 112. Okay?
Yep.
I sent away Jaden Reed, the 206 and the 208.
Okay. You got 2 firsts. Okay. I mean...
For Jaden Reed in 2 seconds.
Yeah. So you down tier from Godwin to Reed, but you moved your seconds up to first.
And you talk about my league mates being idiots?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well,
wait, that was in field, right?
Yeah.
I remember you were just getting firsts for nothing this offseason. Sometimes motherfucker was like competing last year and got like 7 firsts this offseason.
My league mates would say the same thing. I remember I got a first for Cortland Sutton like a year and a half ago, and everybody lost their mind.
Good.
But I mean...
I turned in like fucking Rome.
It was, I think it turned into JSN.
Oh, last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
But basically, if you look at that trade, I got off of the upside of Jaden Reed to go to safety of Chris Godwin, which at the time of this trade, that looked and felt terrible.
Yeah.
And I got just tear ups in the first from second round picks. But I guess the point is, to me, that's the point. Like guys in that fringy range where I like Jaden Reed for the record, but if I can go from him and get like a safe flex of Godwin and I get a legitimate plus back, those are the type of trades I think you can definitely make.
I don't hate that.
I love Jaden Reed right now.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do.
You hate him.
That's my guy.
You love everybody. Franklin, him. Who don't you like except BDG?
Keenan Coleman.
Enough.
All right. Here is my next buy, sell, hold. Sorry, I'm not buying all these guys. George Kittle, tight end for the Niners. Sleeper ADP of 84.7. That puts him as the tight end 9. Tight end 9. The 3 above him, Kyle Pitts, Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson. The 3 below him, David Njoku, Jake Ferguson, Evan Ingram.
Can you give us some players around him that are non-tight ends?
Absolutely.
He's got to be like pretty tiered down below those other guys, right?
I like it.
The players in a tier with him, I'll just give you like 3 or 4 ahead of him. The 4 ahead of him, Bryce Young, Keon Coleman, Joe Mixon, Ramondre Stevenson. The 4 below, Cooper Kupp, Javonte Williams, Kirk Cousins, Alvin Kamara. Going to be 31 this year, boys. How are we feeling about him? What does that say? We're selling and what are we doing?
Holding.
Selling and holding.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably more of a hold for me, but when you start throwing some of those names around there.
Kamara for Kittle, like.
Yeah, I don't even really like Kamara. I was more so like those QBs you can get around there.
Well, I'm saying
crazy.
Like if you're selling the 30-year-old running back and buying a 30-year-old tight end, just give me the 30-year-old tight end and the tight end premium.
Yeah,
Like,
I was gonna in that kind of stuff. If it's Kamara, it's like half PPR for running backs, like tier PPR, half for running backs, 1.5 for tight ends. I'm taking the tight end there. I'm not really high on any of those running backs, but you start putting like I might get Cooper Kupp over George Kittle. I'm definitely taking both those quarterbacks that you named over George
Coleman?
Kittle. I would take Coleman over George Kittle for sure.
Bryce Young in a super flex?
Easily, not even close to me.
Okay. The reason I say hold, it's like for me. The reason I say hold for me, it's like if I'm gonna actually buy a tight end, I'm gonna go at the next tier down. You were starting to name like
Ferguson and Njoku.
Yeah, like Njoku, Ingram, because I think I can get similar production and age profiles for a lower cost. I'm not drafting Kittle where he's going. If I'm not going to get one of those elite tight ends, I'm going to wait a little more. So if I have him, I think the problem is the reason I say I'm not doing that in the startup. If you have him, you can't trade him for anything different than Ingram or Njoku. Like I think that's the problem with it. You cannot trade Kittle for realistically. You can't trade him away for what you'd like to get in return. And I just don't think he's worth buying at this age either.
I drafted him in a startup recently and didn't love clicking draft on him, but I got him at a discount because like people were fading him. And so I got him like around later than his ADP was. I think I got him like probably in the 95s range. I'm trying to tear down right now, but it just doesn't seem like it's happening. Like I was trying to get like
you can't
Ferguson.
tear down because everyone under him is younger than him. You can't tear up because no one's tearing
I was trying to do
down.
like Ferguson in like a second, see if somebody would like do that to try and go up. Nobody wants to do it.
No, it's not happening. And I guess the thing is, part of the reason I also say hold is like, all right, at that point now, if I'm trying to force it too much, Kittle still is one of the guys that he's getting older. That's why his price is here. But I have to play him every week. And there's going to be like 3 or 4 weeks where he just absolutely wins you a week by himself. That's the type of game he still has.
You know that in games with Deebo Samuel out, Kittle averaged 9 targets per game. But in games with Deebo in, he averaged 5.
Dude, that's the thing with the fucking Niners, dude. It's like you could talk yourself into any player based on the splits with like one other player out. It's like Deebo's target numbers since C-Mac have come over. It's like Ayuk when Kittle's not in. Kittle when Deebo's not in. It's like playing whack-a-mole over there, dude.
They have one too many guys to have all of them be fantasy relevant.
But
do they though? Look at last year. They were all fucking. Kittle was great.
Deebo
was great. Ayuk was great. C-Mac was great. Like
you just play him and
that's
take your duds. That's what you're saying.
That's to the point with Kittle, especially the tight end position. Like at wide receiver, I think there's a lot of times you're a little more convoluted on like which ones I'm going to start over some of those receivers. Tight ends, you just literally play Kittle every week. Expect the duds, but even if all those guys are on the field when we expect day one, like we have enough uncertainty with what's going to happen with Ayuk. Are they going to trade him or Deebo? Does Deebo stay healthy a full year? At the old range of CMC, does he stay healthy? Like just play Kittle.
And let's just throw in first-round Ricky Pearsall and see what happens. Reportedly developing a connection like Puka Nacua and Stafford did with Brock Purdy. That's reportedly what's going on.
enough.
That's what they say.
You are a walking.
Andrew,
you are a walking sleeper notification.
I am.
We're about to be down bad.
No, the problem is that I sit there and I'll scroll. It used to be Roto World. It's NBC Sports now. I think they bought them or something.
I think they always ran them, but like what they did to their tech was abysmal.
It's
they used to have an app. That
talking about down bad. I mean,
facts.
But I'll just scroll the little headlines out of like OTAs and things like that just to see what's popping up. But they're having a Puka / Stafford connection.
Love that for him.
Love that.
Is it my
So,
play?
So Ricky Pearsall this year's. Oh wait, this is not actually. Yeah, it is your turn.
Did we just skip you? We got one more.
Nuke, yeah, you just did Nuke. I did skip you, huh?
You son of a bitch.
So, but yeah, Ricky Pearsall this year's Puka Nacua is what I heard.
So I've heard from you
So I've heard.
many times.
I heard from some local beat writer out of San Francisco that just
The
Probably.
49er Chronicles, right?
Yeah,
San Fran Chron.
All right, so this player is ADP of 157.6,
bye.
quarterback 33. The quarterback's going ahead of him, Daniel Jones, Derek Carr. After him, Gardner Minshew, obviously not many. And then overall, let's give you the Russell Wilson. You want the players that are not.
All right, dude. I'll buy Desmond Ridder.
You said Russell Wilson. He just said it.
Russell Wilson. Going ahead is Luke Musgrave, Jacoby Myers, Jerome Ford, and after is Khalil Shakir, Jatavian Sanders, Malachi Corley. Russell Wilson, buy, sell, hold.
I mean,
Look, compared to the quarterbacks in his range,
I don't feel like writing it down because I keep getting purple marker, but I'm going hold also.
compared to the quarterbacks in his range, you hold him. But if I can get Russell Wilson a starting quarterback in a super flex league for one of those wide receivers that you mentioned, I'll buy him at that cost. But
What if I put the over under for Russell Wilson's game started this year at 12.5?
Over.
over
I think that's probably true. I feel like Tomlin kind of values
stability.
Yes,
You could put it at 16.5, and I'd probably go the over.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I just think Russ is going to be the starter the whole year. And then I think
just-
depending on how he does, they'll decide whether Fields is the guy next year or not. But I think Russ just starts the whole year.
Yeah, he could start the whole year and then get like some fake contract for another year or two. I could see it.
And if he plays bad, then they just say, see you later. Like, I mean, he goes and does whatever, probably just follows the Jameis Winston path at that point.
GOAT. He needs another chance.
Jameis, he could be the starting quarterback for the Browns.
Tomlin has not had a record where this team has been less than 8-8. This team with Russell Wilson making nothing is not going to, for the first time, be under the 500 mark unless everything goes wrong. They finally can pay everybody. They have no money invested in their quarterback room. Arthur Smith, while we hate him, like what his style is and what he did with Ryan Tannehill versus like Russ, I feel like there's just so many corollaries to are writing this guy off for dead, but he's going to end up being viable. And if you look at him in 6 point per passing touchdown, he was quarterback 13 last year.
Honestly, I believe he was wrongfully benched at the end of the year last year.
I would agree.
I don't think he deserved to be benched.
I don't think it was a talent thing.
It was a Sean Payton's an asshole.
Yeah, I think it was a contract thing too. I think they had to hang him out if they had more games.
And it's a Sean Payton's an asshole.
Yeah.
But
My concern is just like the Arthur Smith offenses throw the ball 22 times a game.
But-
What is Russ's upside, really?
But that's the thing. That's
can
what
win
Russ has
that way.
always been. Let Russ cook.
Yeah, I think he's had even more than that. And like,
I literally went over all of it on my last video. They basically his pass totals in Seattle versus what Arthur Smith's run and what the Steelers, like it's all kind of basically the same. 400 to 550.
right, but that's also like prime Russ. We're like 4 years removed from prime Russ.
What are we?
Yes.
Yeah, since
I also
he
think
had
the
Dave
weapons were
Canales
like-
The
was
points per
last
game.
time.
The points per game realistically isn't really any different. His weapons in Denver has kind of been shit. I'm not arguing he's prime Russ, but I'm saying I don't think he's cooked. Is my point.
Okay.
For fantasy football last year, he actually was pretty damn
Quarterback 13 and
solid.
6 point
He
passing
was
touchdown.
fine. He was the same. I honestly, there was not much of a difference between like, we're talking about him and like Baker.
For the record, you want to know his pass attempts the last 3 seasons?
Yeah.
400, 483, 447.
And ain't going to be much higher this year in Pittsburgh. Not with Najee, not with Jalen Warren, not with Arthur Smith, not with the lack of weapons out there.
When he was quarterback,
Najee
3,
RB1
6,
season.
and 1, pass attempts were 516, 427, 553.
I'm saying though, that was 4 years. That was half a decade ago.
I'm not saying he's going to be a top 12 option likely. Yeah. My point is that even if he treads water and just the starter, at quarterback 33 is value.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying we run the risk. We run the risk of the benching.
For sure.
Because yes, Tomlin likes stability, but he's also benched Kenny Pickett. Like he's gone back and forth between Mason Rudolph, Arthur Smith benched Desmond Ridder, Heineke over and over again last year, Marcus Mariota. Like both of these coaches have shown that they have a propensity that if a player's not playing well, they'll move.
Now, while we hate Russ, let's call it, all those guys you named, can we at least admit that Russ is not those dudes?
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
Okay.
What I'm hearing and what we didn't say out loud, which I'm going to say out loud, but you said a lot of rushing attempts, not a lot of passing attempts. I'm hearing Najee Harris reviving back to that RB1 season.
We've been on that train.
Not RB1.
Now, RB1 might be a little bit aggressive.
Top 12, baby.
He's my most drafted player in underdog drafts right now.
Top.
The highest owned player.
Love it.
Back
He's,
in.
he's like you're getting him in like the 808 shit. It's like
Dude,
insane.
I drafted him in that startup video, and we talking about surviving BDGE. These fuckers were giving me shit for drafting Najee Harris.
Well, I mean, you're talking about Dynasty versus Best Ball Redraft. Two different things here.
Still getting him as like RB21 in Dynasty. Like, the hell are we doing? Come on, mate.
Nah, I'm coming.
All
motherfucker.
right. Enough.
All right. There we have it. Another episode of Buy, Sell, Hold in the Buckaroos. Make sure if you enjoyed, you hit the button that looks like this down below. Subscribe to the channel. We'll be doing this pretty much every other week. But again, we will be shifting heavily to redraft content, okay? So make sure you subscribe to that channel down below and subscribe to the good people's over here's channels, everything in the description.
Who's down worse, Russ or us, BDGE?
That's
Hashtag surviving
That's a
BDGE.
phrase. That's a bar right there. You couldn't wait to say that.